So before we talk about sharing this information with other people, let's take care of some things in-house here and organize it just a little bit better. So if we look here in our layer button, we've got our 6 layers. Inside of those 6 layers now, we've got numerous sub-layers, and then we have a working layer that has 8 objects inside of it. So when we click on this working layer, we can actually see all of those features that we've added to the working layer, which is great. Now what we can do is we can move these to where they belong. So we can start here at the top, Coldstream Fire Department. We can either click these 3 buttons and move, and we can move that, let's call it, that belongs in the critical infrastructure layer. So what it's going to ask us now is that there are default settings to that layer. So the pin style and that place marker type, there is a default for those to all be red when we created that layer. If we want to keep whatever color and features that we've changed it, then we're going to have to, it says, do you wish to apply the destination default styles to your moved feature? We don't want to do that. So that's no. So now we've moved that. If we go back here, we can see we've got 1 object inside of critical infrastructure and only 7 now inside the working layer. So we were able to make that move. So culturally protected areas, we can do it, multiple ways. We can actually click on that feature, and that will take us, highlight that feature for us on the map, take us right to it. We can open up that point to, take a look at the name, if there was a description and photographs. And here, we've got the current layer that it's on. So there is this tab on the side. We don't want to edit that layer, but we've got this tab here. We can pick where that belongs. So maybe this culturally protected area, it belongs more in the restricted zones. So we'll click on that. You can see now that the layer that it belongs to is not, or that it's placed in now, is not in the working layer. It's placed in the restricted zones. We can back out of that. Oh, we went way too far. We'll go back into our base map. So it's still on our map, but it's just sitting on a different layer. Again, we have this division line here. Where should we move that to? I believe we can move that to the layer for division. So we might have an east and west line. Again, we don't want to use the default settings when we push it into that layer. So hazardous spill area. Let's move that one. So we can call that restricted zone. Now a hydrant. We'll move that again. So inside of water sources here, we got a bit of a drop down because we have 2 different sublayers. So we've got an area for hydrants. And we don't want to use those default settings. We want to use what we've picked because we spent time doing that. So the Incident Command Center, let's move that one to critical infrastructure. Again, we're going to click no. So we've got safety zone in the subdivision left. So if we're, again, on the map itself, here is the subdivision. If we click on it, we can move that out of that working layer to a part of our division map, maybe. So now it says it's part of that division. And then that safety or the safety zone down here, let's move that to, by clicking on this arrow again, let's move that to the safety zone layer. Perfect. Okay. Let's just zoom out just a little bit and off to the side so that you can see these. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up our layer list. So here's our parent layer, and you can see all of our points here off to the side. So if I take our parent list and I select hide, all of those points disappear. Everything inside of here disappears. So let's open it up, and you can see everything has this eyeball with a cross through it. So if I want to turn on all those layers, so let's say we had two fires right beside each other, and we were on one pole, we were on one fire, and the next pole we came out, we were on fire adjacent to it. We can shut off everything that had to do with that fire by just using that hide feature. Now we can show them again, and they'll pop back up. Now, if we're working on this fire and we don't need to know where the hydrants and critical infrastructure are, we can hide the critical infrastructure, which were those points there, and then we can hide the hydrant, which is either in the hydrants, if we wanted to hide just the hydrant itself, or if we wanted to hide hydrants and drafting, we could come back out and use this water source layer to hide that, and we can see that that hydrant disappeared here off the corner. So when we have two objects inside of a layer, we can actually go individually and show just that IC center and turn that that hide feature off for each individual point. Again, if you've got hundreds of hydrants, you're better off having them all grouped inside of a layer. That makes sense. And for critical infrastructure, you might just want to have the fire department or the command center, but you might not want to have other assets in the area visible on the map, because it might just make the map too cluttered with stuff. So let's go back and turn everything on. So we've got one feature in here that we have to show. And then these two down here, we'll show them again. Now, anytime we add anything extra to, or any more data to the map, it's going to show up in this working layer because we've left that one as active.